The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen.
Well, hello, and we are back. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining me again on Ask Dr. Doreen. We are at the 23rd hour, if you can believe it. It's been a pretty amazing marathon, podcastathon so far. And the next couple of hours I'm going to be with you, and I will be interviewing some pretty fabulous people. And so I guess I will, real quickly before we begin, I just want to tell you that, of course, you can be watching this podcast on autismnetwork.com, or if you'd like to also participate, comment, and interact while we're doing these interviews on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, Autism Live. We are active, and we hope that you'll join us. I am looking at all the comments coming in as well. I do want to also tell you that, of course, we are doing a fundraising challenge over the next several hours, and if we are able to raise $5,000 for iPads that we will be distributing through our foundation, Autism Care Today Act, if we're able to raise $5,000, then on the last hour, the 44th hour, I will have a lot of fun because I will be shaving our dear host Shannon's head. So go to this site, givebutter.com/iPad challenge, and please help us. And any amount you can donate will help us get to that number that we're hoping to get to. Really appreciate that. Okay, so my first guest right now is a very dear old friend of mine, Vince Redmond, and I guess, Trayvon, if Vince is with us, he can join us. Vince is a licensed marriage and family therapist. He's been on Autism Live many different times, and he is currently Director of Safety, Security, and Family Services at CARD. But also he has a private practice that I would love to tell you all about as well. And Vince has been working in the field for, I have to guess, about 30 or so years. And so if I can get Vince on the show, I'm always happy to ask him a bunch of questions. How are we doing with that, Trayvon?
I'm here.
Vince, was that your voice?
I think so. I don't know.
Awesome. That is great to hear you. Trayvon, I hear an echo of my own voice, but if that's unavoidable, that's okay. And maybe we can just get Vince on the screen.
I can see myself.
Ah, there you are.
Hello.
Hello. It's always awesome to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you? How's the castathon going?
Yeah, podcastathon. Well, we're in hour 23, which is,
amazing.
Pretty exhausting. Shannon is taking most of it, of course, with other hosts helping us as well. I think I'm not sure. I might be at hour 9 or 10 of mine, but it's always fun and it's great. And we hope we can just do something special like this for April.
Absolutely.
So Vince, I want to ask you, I think, is this your 30th year or is it more even?
This is the 30th, yeah.
30th year, wow, that's incredible.
Known him for 30 years now.
Yeah, and I mean, you've been in this field for 30 years working with autism. So, and that's pretty rare. There are not a lot of people who've been in the field for that long. And let me just start right there. How do you think autism has changed over the past 30 years? Autism or treatments or the world of autism, what do you think?
Oh, many different things, right? I mean, as you well know, when I started, it was still in the cusp of not a lot of people knew what autism was, and there wasn't a lot of information in regards to treatment. There wasn't a lot of information on what families, parents would do if that diagnosis was given. Matter of fact, that diagnosis, it wasn't given very often as well. Right. So, I have to turn my volume up, someone's volume up. So, looking at the field, we really had no guidance, referrals or resources for families. And to look at where it was there back in the early 90s to where it is now, it's amazing. We have, like we're doing here, the amount of professionals and parents and resources and, help and guidance that are given just in these next 24 hours is more than we had at all in the beginning of the 90s. It's just, amazing to see how much support, how much treatment has evolved, how much the other disciplines, either medical or behavioral, have come together to form much more, comprehensive treatment plans for kids, individuals, and families on a whole. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's very true. And then unfortunately still, I interact with families in some states where it is still a really long wait list just to get the diagnosis. And even though, as you said, things have changed so much, and earlier we were talking about, of course, one of the biggest changes over the past 3 decades, I guess, is insurance coverage, right? And that is such a tremendous thing that we have in this country, yet a lot of people either don't know about it or don't know exactly what they can access through their insurance. So, that's unfortunate. There's still a need to provide education and information for a lot of people in a lot of different states. Some of the good stuff, I think, that you mentioned as well, and I want to ask you more about, these days, as I said earlier today, you can go to a restaurant, and most restaurants, at least in California and maybe some other states, you can order gluten-free foods, for example, which is so important for some of our kids. You as someone who's still working in the field, do you find that there is more cohesion between the behavioral and medical fields, or is it still, two separate things that are kind of going in parallel?
Both. Right. I think there's been a lot of growth, but I also think there's a lot of growth that still needs to be done. Mm-hmm. Like you said, there's Whole Foods, Sprouts, right? There's whole sections of gluten-free or casein-free, foods where, this accessibility for our families is so great that they're able to live very, very normal, and eat very normal diets, when there are, GI issues with their children or even throughout their families. Where before, as we remember, 20 years ago, they were making their own pasta. They had to get their own, gluten-free ingredients to make things. There was no pre-made stuff, and the stuff that was pre-made was terrible.
Yeah, you're right. I do remember that.
Great.
Yeah, but do you think
as things have evolved, we see a lot of more medical professionals and interventionists that are collaborating well with behavioral science, behavioral therapists, behavioral professionals. However, not a week goes by that I don't hear from a family or from an individual that have discussed that doctors are referring away from ABA, or doctors are still saying that ABA is not scientifically proven, or is still not a treatment that they would recommend. why and how that is still occurring today, baffles me, but it still occurs. So there still is more, I believe, education that needs to be given in the medical field. I think there needs to be more efforts on the behavioral side to continue to collaborate with the medical side and vice versa. But I've seen, and I know as you have as well, have seen great strides in those areas. I hope it keeps going.
Yeah, you're right. And I tend to talk to a lot of, I guess, BCBAs all over the world, and there are still a lot of behavioral people as well who are not knowledgeable about the medical or dietary stuff. Right. And so I think it makes it a little bit harder and more stressful for parents, I think, because they have to be the conduit that kind of like makes sure their child is receiving whatever is appropriate. And I mean, I was shocked just recently. I had a family reach out and say that their provider, their ABA provider, was not willing to adhere to their dietary restrictions because they just didn't believe in it. And I mean, that's shocking to see to some extent, but I guess it still happens.
Yeah. Well, and again, it needs to not be us versus them or them versus us. It's a we. The treatment plan, it needs to be medical and behavioral. You can't do just one side and get the same results.
That's right. And now you also have a practice, a private practice, and you help and you work with parents and families who are somehow affected by autism as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I've had my private practice for 20 years now.
Wow.
And it's an open, a marriage and family therapy practice for individuals, couples, families, and such. Obviously, with my background in ABA and my background in working in the field of autism, I specialize in working with families that are going through the emotional, we'll call it journey of what it is to have a child or a relative that's on the spectrum. I have families that are dealing with older parent or older children, 20s in their early 30s, and what do they do with how do they emotionally as well as practically work with their child. And then we have that grief, that immediate reactions from families who just get the diagnosis. Working with them through the grief cycle and helping them find hope, find motivation, find resources and support to help them through their needs. So it's been wonderful to be able to be multidisciplined, where I've been able to be trained and work so many years on the ABA side of it, but then also being able to continue to support the whole family emotionally as well as practically.
That's such an important thing too, because I think we often overlook how much stress the entire family system is under. And of course, you and I both know that, divorce rates are high. It's extremely difficult on families. And so it's wonderful that you've been doing that. And I hope that you'll continue doing that, because it's a very, very beneficial, valuable service that you provide. Let me ask you, what all these years, staying in the field, what made you stay, or what is the thing that motivates you to continue in this field?
Two things. The first thing that kept me in the field, to be quite honest, was you.
Oh, that's awesome.
So there's that. But then the results you see when you have that positive effect on the families, when you see the change in the children, when you see that you've been able to counsel or support, the family and the couple to create a stronger family or a stronger bond, so that they're working together, and you see the whole family progress. It's those rewards, those simple, small rewards that you get on a daily basis when you see a smile, when you see them find a little bit of hope. That's motivated me throughout the 30 years, not only on the ABA side, but also on the counseling side, on the therapy side. And every day when you get that reward, that makes your purpose, that makes me feel that this is what I've been meant to do, and this is, where I should continue to focus all my future in helping others and finding ways to make everybody smile.
That's amazing. That's terrific to hear. And I know that you also often participate on our shows, and even through that, you are helping so many families who are, yesterday we had a couple of lectures, and it was really all about anxiety. And a lot of it was the anxiety that parents feel, not just our kids. I mean, we know that a lot of the folks with autism experience anxiety, but just the apprehension that families have in regards to what's going to happen to their children and so on. That's something that's really difficult, and I'm so glad you are helping the way that you do. It's so necessary.
And it's throughout the journey, right? It's not just, I think sometimes there's a front load of services and support for families just starting out, recent diagnosis, just starting in treatments. But we have to remember this anxiety, these stress levels go through every developmental stage and continues as the family continues on as well. So having that long, more longitudinal support to support them and support their new stressors and anxiety along the way, I think is very essential for them to continue that hope, continue their journey, and to continue to be happy.
Yeah. So what if you had the opportunity to give a new family advice? What do you think is the most important thing you can tell a family that has whose child has just been diagnosed? What would you tell them?
Lots of things. I think for me, the most important thing is honest communication. Honest communication between the couple, the parents. Honest communication with the service providers, doctors. What are they looking for? What do they need? What are their fears? What are their anxieties? What are their questions? Don't be shy to ask questions. There is, the whole adage, there is no dumb question. But when you don't have an answer, that means the questions need to be asked. Don't be afraid to reach out to those resources, different resources, and ask those questions. I think what happens is everyone gets very, inclusive and tries to keep everything internal, and they don't want their fears, or they don't want their pains, or they don't want their anxieties to be seen by others. And what that does is it shuts down their world. It shuts down their abilities to access all these wonderful people, all these wonderful resources, and the wonderful support that they have within their family.
Yeah.
And that I see oftentimes is kind of the catalyst to a lot of those divorces, breakups, breakdowns, and sometimes even worse.
Yeah, that's so true. And I don't want to keep you over your time limit, but I have one other question. Given that you have so many years of experience and have worked with so many children, and I personally know some of your children who have done extremely well. What is the single most important thing you've learned about autism itself? How do you summarize the experience of 30 years? What have you learned?
That truly, again, putting you on the spot, that it's truly an enormous spectrum.
Yeah.
Right.
Agreed.
I think when you're not as involved or is dedicated to it as we have been over these last 30, 40 years, I think most people don't understand what it means by a spectrum. It's like either A, B, or C. That's not the case, right? I think, a lot of people hear high, mid, or low functioning, but that's really doesn't really apply very often. There's such a wide diversity. Kids that we thought would never recover. Yeah. Kids that we thought, were flying through everything. All of a sudden we found where their main deficit was. And I really had to do a lot of concentrated work on that one area, years of work in one developmental area to get them, through and so that they could be successful. So for me, I think the biggest learning lesson I've seen in autism over these years is that the spectrum, it continues to grow. It continues to, I think we find more variations and more, each new child, each new family, each new patient we meet.
Yeah, which I think, you're absolutely right. And I would probably say that's also the biggest lesson I've found. And it's it just leads to the premise that every child is different, everything has to be individualized. And I often tell that to parents because, you know, the parents have only one experience or maybe two, their own. And they're not aware of how broad the spectrum is. And sometimes they try to do the things that their friends are doing and it doesn't necessarily apply to their kids. So that's very good advice. You're absolutely right. Vince, thank you so much for taking the time to come on here and join us on this podcast-a-thon. We love you. You are amazing. I hope that you continue to do the good work that you're doing. It was always a joy for me to work side by side with you for so many years. And now it's like wonderful for me to see you continue on and continue to help people. So thank you for that. And I look forward to having you back on our shows.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Have a great rest of the week, and I hope we meet that mark.
Sounds
so you can
good.
shave Shannon's head.
Thank you so much, Vince. Take care. Be well.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye. That was Vince Redmond. As I said, very good friend because, you know, we worked together for many, many years. Let's see, it's now about 4 or 5 years 4 years or so that I've been gone from CARD, but he and I worked together for over 25 years, and it was always a pleasure. Vince is one of the most patient and caring individuals that I know, and if anybody is interested in looking at the video that we made years ago called Recovered, where we tracked 4 children. One of the children was a child that Vince worked with, and he did extremely well with that child as well. Okay, so now I believe my second guest is, if she is available, is Dr. Kat Hurd, or Dr. Catherine Hurd. She is, Kat is not here yet, so what we'll do is, I guess we will skip and go to the guest that I was going to start after her, and that is also a good friend, and one of the individuals who shares the joy of being currently on the ACT board, the Autism Care Today board. My co-board member and treasurer, Jay Ocana, who I welcome to the show. And if Jay is here, we can chat a little bit about everything. Hey, Jay.
Hey, Doreen. Great to see you.
Good to see you too, and thank you so much for joining us. I don't know if you know about this crazy idea that Shannon had to do 44 hours of live streaming, and so we are at hour 23. It's been kind of an interesting experience, but in the meantime, we're also fundraising for ACT, our foundation, and Shannon has promised that if we can get $5,000 just for iPads, she will, on the 44th hour, I will have the pleasure of shaving her head. So, and that's tomorrow great. At 10 a.m. Yeah.
That's great. I'm sure if we short on funds, that one of us will chip in towards that goal.
I know, because we all kind of want to see that happen. That's
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
That's good. Brave of her.
Jay, you of course are also a father, and I'd love to ask you some questions as a father. But first, let's talk a little bit about ACT. And we're both on the executive team of Autism Care Today, on the executive board, together with Greg Anderson and Bill Cernius, 2 other people who are very dedicated to this. And, we've raised and given away, thank God, around $2 million to families, and I hope that we can continue to increase that. Right. I think you and I are both just as proud as we can be. Tell us about, if you remember, some of the fun grants that we gave away, or some of the things that you remember from being a board member at ACT.
Well, first of all, I think that having a child on the spectrum and going through that process, and I think parents going through process of a child going through any kind of thing, not just autism, whether it's cancer or diabetes or anything like that. I think as parents, we either succumb to the stress and the anxiety and the negativity of the situation, or we try to do something positive to help other people in the same situation. And I think for me, getting involved in helping found Act Today, it really was about how can I help people who are in this situation that may be even less fortunate than me, right? Mm-hmm. And so for the biggest thing for Act Today that I thought was compelling was back then insurance companies didn't even pay for things like occupational therapy and ABA, which is very important. And for me, luckily we were blessed enough to have the financial capability to help our child. But I thought of all the other people that didn't have the financial ability to pay for these things that could help their child and get them better, but weren't capable of doing that. And so I think our mission is really a great mission. And I love being involved in that ability to be able to hand money to the families, to their therapists and so forth to help them directly versus just, it's great to donate to charities, but sometimes that money just goes into a fund and you don't know how much you're using of it for the people themselves. And I think for us, that direct involvement with the families and seeing that in action is really, really gratifying. And I think for me, I would say some of it's hard to say fun, but I would say helpful, everything from, kids that elope that have contacted us for grants asking for how can I stop my kid from eloping? I live in an area that doesn't have fencing, and how can I help my child? And we've provided things like even fencing, right? We've done anything from that to the iPads that I think the iPads to me is one of the best ones that we've been involved in getting kids to communicate. With my son, he was nonverbal at 3 years old, and for him to communicate, we used to use the PEX cards, right? We didn't have iPads back then, but the ability to help these families by providing them iPads so that they can communicate is probably one of the most gratifying pieces I think I've been involved in.
I agree. I remember days when the board, we would sit around, those were fun days actually, and we would have just raised, let's say, $100,000 or something from an event, and we would have the opportunity to, this is when we were a little bit smaller, and we could go through these grants ourselves. And it was just heart-wrenching to see some of the needs. I mean, you remember we would often have like a mom, a single mom, 2 children on the spectrum, just requesting funds for, like, as you said, safety equipment or, a helmet or during COVID, of course, there were a lot of people who were affected by autism who lost their jobs, were laid off, and were asking just for food, grocery cards, and so on. And so it is tremendous. I agree. The iPads were a really, really effective way to help folks, and that's why it's still one of our primary grants.
Yep, absolutely.
So we just had, of course, 6 months ago, our annual event, the Halloween event. What a great event it was. It was a little bit of a crazy event.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, and we were lucky to raise some funds, and we're already starting to plan our next event for Halloween again, although it's just April, but we are looking at the venues and, spreading the word that we want to make this the biggest Halloween event of LA so that we have hundreds of people coming and donating to ACT so we can use those funds.
Yeah, I think that would be incredible. I mean, the going back to what you were talking about in the early days when we were smaller and less funds coming in, I think the most gut-wrenching part for me was, I say it in a very negative way, playing God in terms of we would have 300 requests, we could only support 50 of them or 100 of them, and not being able to choose those other people or give them what they need was really the hardest part to me, right? Was picking and choosing. And yes, we helped some families, but there were so many more families that we couldn't help, right? And no matter what it seems, no matter how much money we raise, there's always more families that need our help and our support. And so, our events are great for raising money, and I hope that we continue to have successful events so that we can help more and more families.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like this one, like right now we're asking for these donations just so that we can purchase some more iPads. But I agree with you. Anything we can do, and believe me, Jay, you know, as someone who sees the incoming grant requests,
Yes.
it is still as bad, if not worse, because there are just so many, and there are no other charities like ours. Like ours is so focused on just services, right? And we generally, because we have so many families requesting help, we try not to go over $5,000 per grant.
Yeah.
But there are so many requests, and the board has always been, and especially the executive board, has always been very generous. And I remember when we'd sit around, as you said, we would run out of money. And there were still a few more grants, and each of us would be like, I'll cover that one, I'll cover that one, and we would somehow get through it. And I think it's still the same. There are lots of families needing help.
I do, and I think and you touched on it, but the big difference for us is it's great to give money, for research and research, causes and cures and better treatments, and all that is all fundamentally very, very, very important. But there's families right now all across this country that are suffering, that are struggling, that have children on the spectrum. They don't know how to pay for their services. They don't know how to help them. Insurance may cover part of it. They may not know insurance covers part of it. And so for us, helping them directly is tremendous. And I think that that's why I'm so passionate about our mission and about our charity.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, of course, with the prevalence having increased just last week, there are even more families in need.
And more that are coming.
And more that are coming, absolutely. Before I let you go, I do want to ask if you would share with us how your son is doing.
Wow. Well, he is doing fantastic. We were in a situation, as you know, autism is a very broad spectrum, and there's the people that use terms like moderate autism or PDD, NOS, or whatever. Right? In our situation, our son was really like if you looked at the spectrum, was really kind of tough, right? He lost his language. He wasn't able to communicate. He did all the typical, autistic things that kids do, spinning, banging head, all that kind of stuff. And for us, we kind of threw the kitchen sink at him in terms of helping him recover. For us, it was key to have the behavioral therapy, obviously ABA with CARD, which was amazing and hugely helped him through his life, and the speech therapy and the occupational therapy. And we did all sorts of biomedical interventions that really, really also helped him.
Him a lot,
those biomedical interventions helped him be able to sit through therapies.
Absolutely.
And he gained his language and all that stuff. And today, just to give you the quick update, he is now studying at Baylor University. He's a computer science engineer major.
Amazing.
Obviously, of course, right? He loves his math and his video games, as you might recall. And he is doing fantastic. I mean, he's living independently, has some roommates. He lives in a dorm. He does, fun college stuff when he's not coding all the time. And he's a pretty typical kid. If you met him, you would say, like, he's a little quiet, some socially awkward, still a little bit of social anxiety. We're still working on that, but he's awesome.
That's amazing. Congratulations. That's so always gives me such great joy to hear that. That's wonderful.
We were very blessed. Not all treatments work for all kids. Not all kids. I think all kids can improve.
Yeah.
But it's really amazing. And I think, I don't know who uses that analogy. You might have given it to me at one point, but he was still hit by the bus, right? He still had autism, but we were able to really recover him, and he's fully functioning member of society and on his way to a nice, good college degree, hopefully a job and right now his biggest thing is he hasn't had a girlfriend yet.
Yeah, I knew it. I would have guessed that.
And he really wants a girlfriend. So, we're working on that part. Although I can't really help him much now. He's in college in another state, but he's doing great. Thanks for asking, Doreen.
He'll get there, I'm sure. And he's a very good-looking guy, so he'll get there. And, I have to say that one of the things that I tell parents all the time is your involvement as a parent is really critical. And you and Jen both were extremely involved in his development and in his learning. And you did research a lot of things, and you did a lot of different things that were very helpful. And so, you know, first of all, thank you. And it's always been an honor for me to be on this board together with you. I enjoy working with you, doing all the things we do for ACT. And congratulations. I'm so happy that things are going well for him. And I really look forward to our next event and getting together and being able to help more families.
Absolutely. And thank you, Doreen. If anybody's honored, I am. You are, I mean, I couldn't even count how many people, thousands of people you have helped save their kids all around the world, including my child. So if there's any honor to be given, I'm definitely honoring you, because you are amazing. And I hope I know you're sort of stepped back a little bit, but I hope you continue to do your good work.
Thank you. I will. You got to just remember to invite me to his wedding.
Okay. I will do maybe graduation first, then
graduation first. That'd be even better. Sounds good. Thank you so much, Jay. Be well. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Well, that was lovely. It's always so nice to talk to our fellow members of Autism Care today. We do so much stuff together, and it's always so delightful. The executive board, which Jay is on, we've all of those folks are regularly for year after year after year, and I think it is honestly about 20 years that we have founded ACT. And every year they donate their time, their funds, their resources, everything they possibly can. So thank you very much, Jay. Traven, are we ready? Yes, wonderful. So my next guest, also a very dear and senior long-time ABA professional, is Dr. Catherine Hurd, who I call Kat because I've known her for a very long time. Dr. Hurd is the owner and CEO of Mercy Autism Center in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And we'd like to welcome her to our show. I'm gonna wait until she pops up on screen. There she is. Hi, Kat. Oh, I can't hear you. Oh, and she's gone. We give it a minute and hopefully we will get her back. Dr. Hurd and I worked together in the field for, I want to say, she has also been in the field somewhere around 30 years. We'll ask her when she pops back on. But, you know, when she was a therapist, she also helped. We were treating a lot of families in the Middle East, in Abu Dhabi, and she helped tremendously by going out there and actually staying there for a while, and I think over a year, maybe even longer, and helping treat those children out there. So she's got a lot of experience. She's worked with all different levels of children, and she was overseeing the entire region of southeast U.S., you know, the Louisiana region, lots and lots of clinics at CARD until she left, and then founded her own center, which is fantastic, and I'm so excited for her, and I can't wait to hear all about the center that she has founded. Louisiana, I'll just keep talking until we have her back, but Louisiana is one of the earlier states that decided that it would be important to have licensure for ABA. So it was one of the first states that had this license, and I think it resulted in having higher quality therapies. Hi, Kat, can you hear me now? I still can't hear you. I can see you, but I can't hear you. I'm gonna wait until Traven does some magic. Nope, I still can't hear. Oh, and she's gone again. Traven's trying to fix it. Okay, we'll see if we can fix the communication issues there. Yeah, so, it's Kat later got her doctorate degree in ABA. Oh, there you are. Now I can hear you. Yay! But I can't see you, so I think Traven will put you back up in a minute. There you are. It's nice to see you, Kat. How are you doing? I just gave a long introduction about you.
I heard it all. Thank you so much.
So tell us about your new role and your new center. I'm very excited for you.
Well, I don't even know where to start. It's been a whirlwind. It's been very fast. We opened our doors in February of this year, 2023, February 18th to be exact. And wow. We are off to a great start. I mean, I have probably about 22 kids that are in the process or currently getting services already. And I've hired another BCBA. We got about 15 therapy staff. It's been a whirlwind for sure. We are, focused on trying to get back to that patient-centered care and, creating a good, solid clinical team and, networking with the community, offering our supports to the community, and really, just being there for the families. I've had probably in the last couple of weeks 5 patients that are newly diagnosed, and as you know, all the support that those moms need in just coping with the diagnosis and where to go next, what to do next, what should I do, what should I not do, so it's been a lot, and I'm definitely going to ask for your words of wisdom because you've been there, done that, but. Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard, and especially it's hard when you're in a state where there are already some regulations, not necessarily the right regulations, but some regulations and licensing requirements. So it makes it a little bit harder. And then there's also still a huge need, and I'm going to ask your opinion in a minute about the increase in prevalence, the 1 in 36 as well now. But with all of that, I don't know, how are resources in general in Louisiana? What would you say? I mean, you've lived in California, some of the numbers all over the country. How would you compare Louisiana?
I think that there's pockets of the communities that have gotten better. There's still a huge wait list for diagnoses. I'm sure that's nationwide. I don't think that's just Louisiana, but I had a mom who saw me yesterday and she waited a year for her appointment, even though she knew her son, and he, nonverbal, self-stimulatory behavior, pretty much nonstop, eloped out into the street, and a neighbor found him, all the things, and she still had to wait a year to get that diagnosis so that she could engage getting an intake assessment for ABA services. So a lot of more providers are only focused on that comprehensive early intervention. So there's still, in our community at least, individuals who are past the age of 8 that don't have as many resources available to them. And we all know, there's very little out there for individuals past the age of 18 to 21 as well.
That's still a big problem. I continue to hear that and talk to parents who are asking me what they should do because their children have aged out. Whereas, in reality, of course, they're not supposed to age out of this therapy, right? But a lot of providers find it, I guess, harder to deal with teens and adults, and so they're not focused on that. It's a lot easier when the children are younger. There's a lot more funding for them, obviously. So it is very difficult. I'm hopeful that there will develop some more teen and adult centers. But I know that it's very hard when you first open your own center because as a clinician, you are so focused, and you always have been, so focused on the quality of the clinical care and working to make sure that every child is individually looked at and evaluated, assessed, and receiving what's right? And then while you're focused on that, you also have another full-time job, which is operations and making sure all the staff are trained and getting everybody paid and billing all the families and talking to the insurance companies, and anything in the suite breaks down, it's your issue, and it's a lot. It's a lot. Have you managed in that area? Have you gotten any help in that area?
Well, I have relied on my husband, who's been helping with a little bit of the financial pieces. I did get an admin tech. She started this week, and she is so fabulous because she is so OCD and organized and just what I needed to help keep things going while I, balance the clinical versus operational hat. And it's funny that you say that, because the other day I was so caught up in doing therapy with a kid that I didn't even really notice that the AC had broken. And I'm sweating, and I thought I was sweating because here I have this 2-year-old that, is all over the place. And, at 45 years old, it's a lot harder than it was when I was like 20. It's been a lot, but I feel that I'm slowly adding in the pieces of support. And surprisingly, I've built a network of people that really just want to help me.
That's awesome.
The place that my site is at, my center is at, they have offered, at least from somebody, and they send over texts to help with the AC stuff, some of the building maintenance. So yeah, it takes a village for sure, and I think that I have that village helping me. But at the end of the day, it's still, my ultimate responsibility, and I take every piece of that responsibility very seriously. So
yeah, and you always have, and I will say that you were always not just one of the best clinicians, and you went ahead and got your doctoral degree, and you just kind of made it even better, the quality of care and knowledge that you have. But you also were always very dedicated to the families, very dedicated to training staff, making sure that the quality of care is good. And you always worked massive hours to try to help. I was going to ask you, now that you have 2 young children of your own, I mean, talk about age is one thing, but like motherhood also, you're living the life that I had, which is, I had 3 children, they were young, and I was growing the company and trying to do everything. How are you managing with that, and how hard is it?
It's hard. In fact, I've gone through a few mommy guilt moments. But again, it takes a village. My mother-in-law, like just today, my mother-in-law picked them up from schools, taking them to their swim lesson. Yesterday, I brought them to the center. And you know what's so great about that? One, I'm teaching my children acceptance from a very young age. Yeah. And they love it there. They jump right in, and they're playing with the kids there. And they engage with them, and they say, hey, mommy, this person needs this one, or I'm going to go play Candyland with so-and-so. And so, it's just a village. And, I, want to rear them alongside on what I do so that they know and, rely on the resources I have. But it's definitely been an adjustment. I've had some mommy guilt moments. So
yeah, no, we get through those. But, I'll tell you, as someone who's been through that, my kids, I think even more so, they appreciate the role model that I was. And you have 2 little girls, and that's fantastic, because for girls, it's important to have a very, a mom who is out in the world and able to do all these things. And it's going to be a very important, it's going to play an important role in their futures in a positive way. But I know how hard it is when you have to leave for work and stay long hours. I hear you.
My oldest the other day, she said, Mommy, when you get too old to work, am I going to be responsible for Mercy?
Oh.
I said, yes, baby, if that's what you want. If that's not what you want, that's okay.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And how old is she now?
She's 8.
Yeah, that's amazing.
No, she's 7. She'll be 8 in a couple months.
That's amazing. Wow. Awesome. So, Kat, what do you think about this increase in prevalence yet again?
I feel it, Doreen. I feel it. And I know the statistics are still there, but I'm seeing a lot more of females.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. But I feel it. I mean, I am, and the crazy piece is that's still probably underrepresenting the true prevalence, because there's people who can't even get a diagnosis for a year. Yep. So imagine if everybody could accessibly get a diagnosis, what it would really look like. Yeah,
that's right. And I was talking with Steve Edelson earlier today, and of course, this data is from the beginning of 2020, and I think they looked all the way down to 4-year-olds or 5-year-olds. But if you look at birth rates, it would have to go 4 or 5 years even before that. So this prevalence is already somewhere like 8 years old. And who knows what actual current rates are, but I do agree with you that it is increasing, and which is, just another reason that I'm so happy that you were able to go out on your own and open this center. And 22 kids, that's a lot already.
In a month and a half. It's been crazy.
What are they getting to you relatively young, or is the diagnosis, are they receiving treatment relatively young?
So it's a mixture, but I would say 50% of that is between the years 2 and 5.
Wow.
I literally just saw a kid 2 weeks ago, and he just had gotten his diagnosis, but the sister was definitely red flags, and the mom, she was just shy of her second birthday, and the mom said, yeah, I'm taking her in a couple of days, and I'm sure she's going to get a diagnosis too. It just ate at my heart. Me and my empathy and my ability to sometimes I left that intake crying because, for that poor mom, she just got a diagnosis for her son, and she's going to have to deal with a comorbid, the sister having a diagnosis within 2 weeks of the other one. It's crazy.
It really is. And sometimes I wonder how the parents handle it all. It's incredible how they do, and their strengths is amazing. If you had to and I wasn't sure, I was saying before you got on, I was saying that I think you've already been working in the field about 30 years, is that right?
25.
And in these 25 years, which is still an astounding number, and there are very few people who have been continuously active in the field for that long, what do you think would be the biggest thing you've learned about autism?
Oh man. Well, that it is truly a spectrum. Yeah. And every single individual I have met is uniquely in themselves. And that's why it's so important for that patient-centered care, because you can't put one person next to the other and say that they are the same or treat them the same. And, it's unique in our medical field to have that, because you can go to a doctor and you have similarities and they give you this prescription. But every single, I've probably seen 7,000 individuals now in the last 25 years, and I cannot put one next to each other and say they're exactly the same at all.
It's so true.
And I think that's what I've learned the most over these 25 years.
It's anyone that I ask that question, as if they've been in the field for 25 or more years, will say the same thing. Because we all look at the kids and we realize that the evaluation process and getting to know the child and the family and everything that's going on with them is so important. Do you feel that the field that we have been in, ABA, has changed a lot over the last, 2 decades or 3 decades?
Definitely. I think that, when I was growing up in the field, there was a lot more, collaboration, support from your supervisor and from, everybody around you, and a lot more engagement with the families, and a lot more engagement with, a collaboration of care. And I feel it's gotten a little cookie cutter and a little rote.
Yeah. I talk to a lot of BCBAs who actually tell me that now that a lot of the companies have been bought out, there's a lot more pressure for them to just do more as opposed to do more quality. And I think it's unfortunate, because there's also a growing number of people who misunderstand what high quality good ABA is. And so, we all have to be careful and try to do the best we can to preserve what is good ABA, because so many continue to still benefit.
I was listening to Jay earlier, and I worked with his son for a short time period, and just to hear him, he's at Thaler and, all of that. But, those were back in the days when we really did focus on individual outcomes, and, we met as teams and we collaborated and we problem solved, and the family was very involved in his treatment.
Yeah. Just to let you know, yesterday, I think, or the day before, I was talking to another co-founder of Autism Care Today, Bill, and he was telling me that how much they miss you. And, I remember for a long time after you had even moved out of California, they insisted on staying with you. And that goes to tell you. Yeah.
That was one of the hardest decisions when I made my decision to depart. That was one of the hardest decisions I ever made, because that family, I miss him dearly. I still try to keep up and check in.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, they're wonderful people, as are you. I'm so proud of you. I am so happy for you. Congratulations on your new center. Let's see, you have 22 kids and we're only in April. So that means that by the end of this year, you'll be ready to open a second site, if not sooner. So
I don't know about that.
I'm going to be watching. There is no way you are if I know you, there's no way you're stopping at one site. So, and I want you to know I'm there to support you and applaud you, and that's fabulous. You're going to help so many families, and you're going to train so many people, which is also another amazing thing you do. Thank you so much, Kat. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. I miss you. Thank you so much.
I miss you too.
And thank you for all of your support over the years. It's truly why I'm here today, and we have this center, and we're getting back to our quality roots.
I look forward to coming out and visiting you at some point there.
Yes, definitely.
Be well, and thank you so much, Kat. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. So there you go. If you are in Louisiana and you want fantastic, especially in the area of Baton Rouge, and you want fantastic services, I can personally tell you that Dr. Hurd is absolutely an amazing clinician, and she will have trained her staff to be fantastic. So Mercy Autism Center in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So that is wonderful. A fun hour with some amazing people. We're going to take just a short, maybe 5-minute break. And then I'm coming back with some additional interviews of people who are in the field and changing the field and making all of our lives better. Thank you so much. See you shortly.
Don't forget, you can watch Ask Dr. Doreen live every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We hope to see you there.